can't we just get beyond Re-Animator? There, I made the joke. I made the joke right away. I, too, have watched Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's done. We did that part. Anyway, watch this video. There's a monster in it. Towards the end, there's going to be a monster. So there's your hook. Hello, Scaredy Cats, and welcome back to our third and final installment of our Re-Animator, Reanimated, Visitation. Like at a funeral, there would be a visitation where we look back at the Re-Animator films with fresh eyes, freshly dug up eyes, reanimated. With Beyond Re-Animator is the black sheep of the franchise. While Part 1 and 2 were made relatively closely together in 1985 and 1989 respectively, though Bride wasn't released until 1990, Beyond was released in 2003. So to put that number in perspective, I was born in 1985 and I graduated high school in 2003, with honors, by the way, because I'm super smart. Also, it wasn't released theatrically. It was made for TV on the Sci-Fi Channel. But most importantly, it's the only Re-Animator film, to my knowledge, to have its own Eurodance song.
Come on, reanimate your feet.
As I've already alluded to, it does feature a reanimated monster, so that's pretty cool. Did I already do the lower third joke? Did I already have a joke come in on the lower third? Could we run that again? Thank you. Thank you, Tabitha. But don't worry, the spirit of the franchise has been reanimated thanks to returning director Brian Yuzna, director of such films as Faust, Love of the Damned, The Dentist, and of course, Rottweiler, which longtime viewers will know I only bring up to show you this. I have fulfilled the prophecy. Beyond Re-Animator is way better than I remember it being. Like, you know, my expectations were pretty low, but it's fun. Is it the greatest work of art of all time? No. The greatest work of art of all time is this drawing Bobby Duke made for my birthday. Look at the colors. It's incredible. He's really talented, and I'm very proud of him. But we can't fault Beyond Re-Animator for that. It has a lot of things working against it. The only returning cast member is Jeffrey Combs, but like, you know, if you were going to pick one, he'd be the one to go with, and like most movies don't even have Jeffrey Combs in them. 20 years later, the man has not skipped a beat. Combs delivers. Fucking naturally. The other actors, however, are sadly not Jeffrey Combs, and their performances suffer as a result. And it's all really cheap, especially the lame-o 2000s-ass CGI, but cheapness comes with the territory. It feels weird to complain about that. We open on two kids telling spooky stories to tell in the dark. Young Howard tells his friend, probably named Young Sheldon, though the script does not confirm it, about the escaped murder maniac who collected, get this, human eyeballs. And to emphasize his point, he brought this sheep eyeball that he bought at the butcher shop. Very normal type stuff for a kid to do. Then they discuss how, like, when you die, the last image you see is burned into your retina. It, like, takes a photograph of the last thing you see, which isn't true, but it seems like it's going to be very important thematically in this movie, so just pay attention to this scene. Feels like it's going to come up again later. I don't know. Just a guess. They get spooked and head inside, and there's Howard's older sister, Emily, and they're... is it me? Am I the fucked up person here? Or is that really weird? I don't want to be indelicate about this subject, but I do feel like two kids at these ages, it feels like a strange choice to have the roughhousing end with Howard sticking his head under his sister's robe and between her bare legs. I don't have a sister, but if I did, I assume I would not feel comfortable doing that with her. And I would love to just chalk this up to like a weird moment, you know, it's just a thing that happened and you're not supposed to pay too much attention to it, but I kind of think it might have been intentional a little bit, because the film does kind of imply later on that Howard is obsessed with his sister in a non-brotherly kind of way, and he is supposed to be kind of a weird little creep as a kid. But although I do wish this movie did not have this element, it does appear to a little bit, so I'm discussing it now. In walks Dr. Tongue from Day of the Dead to disrupt this uncomfortable conversation, but unlike Day of the Dead, he's shot well so you can see his makeup. He promptly strangulizes Emily while Howard is forced to watch helplessly. He rewards himself with a nice, refreshing drink of milk brand milk before the cops come in and start blasting. They keep shooting even when Dr. Tongue is on the ground, but, you know, it's hard to be mad at this particular police brutality because this was a zombie serial killer, so like, okay, that's two kinds of monster, maybe shoot him. Emily dies in Howard's arms and the camera lingers on her eye. Her eye. Howard watches as Dr. Herbert West, an alive man who is noticeably not all crushed up, he has the body of a man who's never even heard of a building collapsing, is arrested for the crime of... So he was around when there was a murdering happened. He was around, I think the cops know that he can raise the dead, and I think that's what he's arrested for. Because, they're putting all these wiggling body parts in little evidence bags, right? So I guess that's what he's under arrest for. It is unclear. But he has dropped a very conspicuous sausage filled with reanimation juice. 13 years later, and Herbert West is awaiting execution at Arkham State Penitentiary. Don't get excited, he does not fight Batman. Having no sausages or Peruvian iguanas with which to conduct his perverse experiments, Dr. West has given up his goal of reanimating the dead, realized his mistakes, and devoted himself to making amends for his past misdeeds. Nah, I'm kidding. Obviously, he's continuing his perverse experiments to further his goal of reanimating the dead. He traps a rat in the walls so he can electrocute it in some sort of sci-fi doodad. I have now fulfilled my contractual obligation by telling you that. The prison guard, subtly named Macho, snitches on West to this Lin-Manuel Miranda-looking guy who I guess is supposed to be tough and intimidating, but he's not. It's Hamilton. So the guard tells Hamilton that West killed his pet rat, Ratty. And from now on, history's gonna have its eyes on Dr. West. Ratty is a lazy name. The script could have done better. I personally would have went with Aaron Furr. Adult Howard is starting his new job as prison medic that day, Bazinga, and goes to meet with the cartoonishly villainous Warden Brando. Brando, portrayed by Simone Andrew, gives off big Andrew Divoff energy. He's a highlight, but he takes an immediate disliking to Howard when the sexy reporter interviewing him does a little flirt. You telling me you prefer handsome doctors to weird villainous prison wardens? Okay. Said sexy reporter is Laura, and all of her lines are ADR'd. I don't know why.
I'm Laura Olney. I'm with the Arkham Record. Anything you say to me can and will be misquoted or taken out of context.
Beyond Re-Animator was a Spanish-American co-production, and I have a suspicion that they filmed the movie, or at least her scenes, Italian style, where they just let all the actors speak whatever language they want and they dub it over later in post. But Laura's one of the main characters, so it's pretty distracting. Howard has requested that Dr. West assist him in the infirmary, which makes Brando suspicious, which the movie frames as though Brando is being paranoid, and I hate to take the side of a guy who's too evil to believably represent the warden of an American prison, but no, he's correct. That's extremely suspicious. In the yard, mentally ill prisoner Moses has an out-of-nowhere heart attack and has to be treated in the infirmary stat lest he die before he can be executed. Amidst the chaos of the yard, the drug-loving Speedball grabs up Howard's doctoring bag and also walks toward Laura with vibes, and that hurts her ankle somehow, I guess. I don't know, Laura, maybe wear flat shoes if you intend to run into a yard full of death row inmates. The guards take back the bag also, nothing cool's gonna happen there, don't worry about it. Unfortunately for all parties, the infirmary for death row is less than well stocked and they lack the medicine necessary to help Moses. Also, Howard yells at this nurse, a lot. A lot. A lot. It's weird how much.
Nurse, set up the IV! Hurry up!
Yes, doctor.
Give me some amiodarone.
What?
Amiodarone!
We don't have any amiodarone.
What do you mean you don't have any?
Then come in.
Well, what do you have? What have you got? Come on, nurse! Go get it! And stay out there with them!
But doctor, I...
Stay out there with them!
So Moses beefs it because they didn't have the medicine that cures heart attacks. Left alone in the room with West, Howard reveals that he has brought with him the sausage from nigh on 13 years ago. Howard, you see, is down to clown with reanimating because he saw a reanimated man kill his sister, and his takeaway from that experience was, boy, this wouldn't have been a problem if I could have just reanimated her. This whole sticky situation could have been avoided. Great critical thinking skills. You're going to be an amazing Dr. Howard. Wes sees a lot of potential in Howie. They both like reanimating and yelling at women, but he's not sure he wants to work with a partner just yet, after his last one turned state's evidence against him. Dan, you snitch? But let's be real here, this is Herbert West. He's not going to pass up an opportunity to reanimate somebody. So without hesitation, they inject the sausage into the corpse of the cannibal serial killer. But when he returns to life, he's no longer the placid, troubled cannibal serial killer that he once was. Now he's dangerous. He gets up and attacks, and even the guards with their delicious arms can't subdue him. Brando brings Laura to the infirmary to get her ankle looked at, and the minute he walks in the room, Moses is immediately fearful and submissive. But also, he does want to get a little squeeze of them nuts, which Brando does not like, One thing about this character that we want to establish right away, he hates it when people hurt his genitals. Remember that. It'll be important later. Brando's like, hey, so how come this dude fought off 4 prison guards in the middle of having a heart attack? That seems a little strange to me. And West was like, oh yeah, no, what we did, we gave him medicine that made his heart beat faster, so that gave him super strength. You know how it goes. And Brando's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, it just doesn't feel like you do get stronger when your heart beats faster, because otherwise coffee or sex or like any aerobic exercise would make it happen. Oh, are you a doctor? Are you a doctor, Warden Brando? Because I'm a doctor, and I'm telling you, he got strong because medicine. That's what happens when you give people medicine, dummy. Brando's like, okay, wise guy, you just added 12 months to your sentence. And I do feel as though prison wardens don't have the authority to do that, but also, West is meant to be on death row, so that if you added 12 months to his sentence, that does seem to me like it would just mean that he gets to live 12 months longer. Not much of a punishment. West also gives Howard a list of ingredients so that they can synthesize more alive juice, presumably including Peruvian iguana guts, though it is not stated for certain. Laura doesn't want to drive on her fucked up ankle, so Howard offers to drive her home, but like, in a mutually reciprocated, sexually tense kind of way. Like, he's saying, I'll drive you home, but he means like, yo, you give me that enthusiastic informed consent, I'm gonna drive this in that. And she's like, let's go! Brando creepily observes from the window, and he's so mad about getting cucked that he goes to visit Zombie Moses and beats him with a cane. So then they're back at Laura's apartment. Howard and Laura are not Brando and Moses. They stay at the prison, and they're eating pizza with red wine, which feels kind of bizarre to me. Maybe that's just me. Feels like a weird mix. Feels like that's acid reflux city. Not the mix I'd want right before sex. Maybe I'm just old. I'm reading too much into this scene. Laura, ever the journalist, ends up asking these deep, probing questions of Howard, which get him talking all about his background. He explains how his sister got totally murderfied, and how it inspired him to become a doctor, because he never wanted to feel helpless to save someone's life ever again. You know, like doctors never have to do.
Clear!
He was dead before you brought him in here.
God damn it!
And then he says that Laura reminds him of his sister, and okay. So this woman, who looks like his sister, by the way, clearly someone he's sexually attracted to, and is in fact but moments away from boning down upon, like he probably already has a condom on in this scene, reminds him of his dead sister. And I feel like that should be a boner killer. Again, I'm forced to ask the question, does Howard have some sort of sexual fixation on his sister? Is that mixed up in all of this? Howard's a hard character to get a read on, because on the one hand, he does seem to have a more standard moral compass than a Dan or especially a Herbert West, but he was like buying sheep eyeballs as a kid, and he was weirdly cold and clinical, and he yells abusively at that one nurse, but he seems to treat most other people pretty normally. He clearly respects and admires Laura and encourages her to be ambitious in her career, so it's not as simple as like he's a great big sexist or whatever. And I guess my question is, how much of the dark side of Howard was intentional on behalf of the filmmakers? How much of it are we supposed to be alarmed by? And how much of it did they just kind of not notice or care about? It's hard to do a close reading of movies like this sometimes, because what might seem like a movie inviting you to consider a question could actually just be the result of a limited budget leading to limited effort. Maybe they just didn't pay their writers well enough to write this scene clearly. I don't know. I doubt any of them are getting residuals from the service I stream this on. Maybe they should strike about that, just a thought. So Howard and Herb are getting chummy, and Herbert's like, yo man, do not think for a second I'm not gonna get weirdly jealous and possessive of you. I did notice you have lipstick on your collar, so don't let that become a threat to our work. Howard's like, what? You're crazy. What are you talking about? I'm not gonna let it become a danger to our work. And Herbert's like, okay, because I did see you making goo-goo eyes at that sexy journalist lady. Please don't give her any info about our work or say anything that might encourage her to look into it. Later, Laura and Howard are lying in bed, and she's like, so tell me about your work. And he's like, nah, I don't want to tell you about the work I'm doing with Dr. Herbert West, disgraced former doctor famous for his theory that death is a disease which can be cured. And she's like, oh, okay, well, how's Moses doing? And he's like, oh yeah, no, he's fine, basically. The one thing that is different about him, though, is that he does seem like he's no longer human, but that's only because of a mysterious thing we did to him. And she's like, oh, okay, I understand. Well, you're probably wondering why I'm asking you all these questions, so let me explain. I'm working on a story which I'm sure you can surmise involves Dr. West and your work with him. But I'm kind of thinking I'm a little out of my depth. I don't know. Do you think I should either drop this story, or do you think I should dig really deep into it, like go past my comfort zone and investigate it all, leaving no stone unturned? And he's like, baby, come on. You gotta go for it. I mean, I believe in you, and you have to trust your reporter's instincts. They've gotten you this far. If you think there's a story to my mysterious work with the spooky doctor, you should follow your gut. Just one thing I would ask, don't demean yourself by doing some cliched attempt at weaponizing your sex appeal. That just feels like an outdated trope. Like, it reduces women to their appearance. Like, oh, you couldn't possibly just get the story based on your intellect. You can only succeed because some dude wants to fuck you. It's pretty regressive in my opinion. Laura's like, what? You're crazy. That's not gonna happen. And the next day she's dressed all sexy like to seduce Warden Brando. All like, oh, Warden, the violence implicit in your use of the electric chair is such a potent metaphor for your virility and domineering sexual power. And he's like, yeah, thanks for noticing. I do often inflict violence on people helpless to defend themselves, which I view as a proxy for my self-image as a powerful and therefore sexually desirable person. Oh, Warden, that makes me so horny in a totally attainable but not slutty way. Can you tell me all about it in an exclusive interview? No. That sounds really boring. I don't want to do that. Oh, wait, fuck. You might mean sex. Yes, I will do that. I will do that with you. Oh, great. I'll just need to take a tour of the prison so I can talk to all the prisoners about how handsome and sexy you are. Okay, but don't try and use that as an opportunity to expose my abuses of power. What? You're crazy. I'm not going to do anything like that as long as you don't use it as an opportunity to become sexually violent with me. What? You're crazy. Meanwhile, West and Howard are doing experiments on this rat puppet that they have, including reanimating it and then shaking it to make it look like it's moving around. West has this new doohickey, a new type of science doohickey, and it takes the electricity out of your brain and you can use it to give people their souls back when you reanimate them, making them normal, but still evil a little bit, which they do to the rat puppet, making it into a real rat. Today's the day that Hamilton is gonna kill West, and he's not throwing away his shot. But before he can get into an elaborate rap about the rules of dueling or whatever, West hands him back his rat, good as new, except, as I mentioned, evil. Also, love this exchange.
That's the way to the hole. It certainly is.
Keep it classy, Dr. West. Never change. Laura bribes Macho to get some alone time with Moses and starts asking him exactly what made him turn into a zombie. Were there any sausages involved? Moses has no comment. He just wants to bite the air in front of her menacingly. Luckily, Brando swoops in to save her. And when I say luckily, I mean that's the worst thing that could have happened. And he's like, hey, wait a minute. I'm starting to think that maybe this beautiful young woman doesn't think I'm sexually irresistible. Maybe her really overt sexual advances were manipulative in nature. So to boost his confidence, Moses tries to nibble on his ear romantically, but he's nervous, I guess, so he ends up biting it off. The warden deanimates Moses with his cane, and then gets paranoid that he's going to be accused of murder simply because he murdered a man. And Laura's like, nah, I don't think so. I mean, it was self-defense. He did attack you first. I think you're fine, man. And the warden realizes he can't let a corroborating witness escape. So this is the part of the movie where we have our deeply uncomfortable and unnecessary scene. Every Re-Animator movie has one for reasons that elude me. And this is the worst, most explicit and graphic one in the entire franchise. Until later in the movie where several other scenes surpass it, so that's what it's going to be like for the rest of this video. Laura tries to escape and the warden strangulates her, I note, just like Howard's sister. They bring her body to the morgue where Howard has a really out-of-place dolly zoom. Alright, you were going for something there, Yuzna. I appreciate the ambition. You're doing a little Hitchcock thing, that's cool. Howard screams at the nurse until she leaves.
Nurse, help the officers.
But I'm not supposed to.
Hopefully, heading straight to human resources. And then it's sausage time, babe. No, that's not how we're going to describe that. They reanimate Laura is my point, but she's not in a great headspace because of the dying and Meanwhile, Hamilton is feeding his pet rat when Moses pops up and tries to eat it. Moses, who, if you're paying attention, you might remember, died moments earlier. And now he's back in his cell in his locked cell, which Macho comes and unlocks, confirming to us that it was, in fact, locked. And then he walks in and Moses spits the rat at him, and that gives him a little tiny, adorable bite mark on his nose. Herbert and Howard are arguing about whether to use rat souls of Laura to make Laura normal again, to make someone normal by putting a rat soul in their body instead of a human soul, when the warden walks in to get his ear reattached, and he realizes they're reanimating and shit. He slaps and threatens West, which is never a great idea, and West doinks him in the dome with a microscope, and he's like, alright, I guess we can use his soul then, right? Like, he's a human, he's not a rat. Moses chomps up Macho, letting Hamilton grab the keys and let everybody out of their cells. And we're just going straight to third act now. No pesky second act for Beyond Re-Animator. It doesn't have time for that. They inject the warden's soul into Laura, who is normal for like a second, but then Screamin' Mad George does some fucked up visual effects, and you realize she's turning into the future of law enforcement. Part Laura, part Brando, all cop. Howard chases after her, but gets scooped up by a SWAT team trying to quell the riot and loses track of her. Herbert West is now in possession of the dead body of a man he greatly disliked, a sausage full of alive juice, and a little ampule of rat soul. And he does exactly what you'd think he'd do with those objects, turning Brando into the future of law enforcement. Half prison warden, half rat, all cop, which if my math is correct, is roughly 250% rat. Hamilton is pissed off that his rat is evil, so he's gonna kill West about it again, but then he gets distracted when he sees Laura and he decides he'd prefer to her. Cool movie, cool, thanks for that. He chases her around until she Brando's out. Meanwhile, Rat Brando chastises Macho for not following orders, and he laments that he just can't find any way to get people to obey him. Wait a minute, the alive juice, famous for its ability to make people easy to control. He reanimates Macho, who also was dead. I forgot to mention that part. And Speedball's looking on, and he's eager to get the same high as them. He sees that, he's like, oh, they're getting high, I guess. It looks like it feels good to do that. So he steals all of the sausages to have a little cookout. And West comes along and he's like, yo, give me those. But Speedball won't stop, because I guess it feels really good to get injected with sausage juice. And it makes him explode. And then his skeleton is like, hey man, got any more? He has a disease. West grabs Speedball's eyeball and puts it in his pocket for later in case he needs it. Laura wakes up and she's killed all the which normally would be good news, but she realizes it's because a different his soul got snuck into her body, so I guess that made her stronger. Because to this point, Laura has not been shown to be particularly effective in combat. And even with the proportionate strength of a prison warden, I don't think she could rip Lin-Manuel Miranda in half. She's not happy about having killed all the attempted and speaking of attempted here comes Brando. He explains his new plan is to make executions last forever by prolonging the agony of death indefinitely by reanimating people once they die. And I would like to now take a moment to analyze the political implications of the 2003 straight-to-TV movie Beyond Re-Animator. So much of Beyond Re-Animator is making a statement about the brutality of the prison industrial complex. The authorities are power-hungry, sadistic monsters or bumbling, cruel dopes, like in real life. People's health and safety is ignored in service of cost-cutting. Their infirmaries missing vital medicine. Rats live in the walls. The prisoners are all initially given very humanizing portrayals as just people with mental health problems or drug problems or a guy who loves his pet rat. But then, the minute any of them have an opportunity to do violence, they become unruly monster thugs willing to murder at the drop of a hat. So, according to the film, prisons are barbaric, immoral institutions because they treat the irredeemable monster men inside too harshly, which is a bit confused, I think. It attempts to argue for some sort of prison reform without really saying what reform they would like, just, make them better. But it does also accept the central narrative that allowed these prisons to become so horrific in the first place. Namely, that convicts are all dangerous psychopaths, and thus deserve whatever punishment can be doled out to them. We know Brando is the villain because he's cruel to the convicts, and he's cruel to the convicts because he believes they're evil and dangerous.
You don't believe in rehabilitation?
Don't be naive, Laura. I believe in what works.
Which, in the movie, they definitely are. It's at once saying that justice should be harsh and punitive, but also, if you think it should be harsh and punitive, you're a bad person if you believe that. Because, that makes you as violent and criminal as they are, you hypocrite. Take Moses, for example. We're clearly meant to sympathize with him when we see Brando hit him with a cane. He's a pathetic figure who goes fetal and weeps when he thinks about the trauma he's endured. He's obviously not lucid, often mistaking other characters for religious figures and begging them for absolution. I don't think it's reasonable to suggest he is responsible for his actions. He's severely delusional. The movie's pretty clear, right? Moses needs help. He doesn't need punishment. He needs medical care. But there are many scenes in the movie where someone attempts to help him. They try to stop being violent and to just help, and he immediately attacks them and they get hurt, which would imply that it's too dangerous to have sympathy for these crazy criminals. They'll lull you into a sense of security and then get you. Do you see what I mean here? Like it wants to make a point about prison conditions, but also wants the lurid plot elements that come from people's preconceptions about prisons. It's very strange. And I guess my point about this is that I don't think the film Beyond Re-Animator has a very coherent ideological position on prison reform. Anyway, Brando decides it's time to Laura again, a second after he's like, these criminal scumbags need to suffer for doing violence and crimes. And I think we can all agree this is just what the movie needed. But what Brando doesn't know is that he's no longer the only Brando in the room. Laura is also a Brando now. Instead of being she instead bites his penis off, which, if you will recall, he hates. He hates it when people injure his genitals. It's one of the little picadillos about his character. It's one of his major pet peeves. When Howard finds Laura, she begs him to kill her before she becomes totally Brando-pilled. But he hesitates because he's a Star-Lord-ass bitch. So she rips off her top, revealing an evil, sexy corset underneath, because now she's evil in a way that it can, gives guys boners. Also, Brando's got spider legs now, so Herbert electrocutes him. Howard is forced to beheadinate Laura, which drives him mad. He starts calling her Emily, that's his sister's name, in case you didn't remember that part of the movie. And he's like, I saved you, Emily. I saved your life. I did it. And that's, no, you didn't. You beheadinated her. And it's never good in the world of Re-Animator to just be an alive head. West escapes the prison by presenting himself as Howard.
Who are you?
Dr. Phillips. Dr. Howard Phillips. I run the prison infirmary.
And it was at this point in the movie that I realized that Howard's name, Howard Phillips, was a reference to the original creator of Herbert West Re-Animator, Howard Phillips' racism. He throws away the eyeball, so I'm not sure why he took it in the first place. Why they didn't just edit out the scene where he took the eyeball. Feels like it served no purpose in the... All right, whatever. Kind of thought it might pay off the last thing you see is burned into your retina thing, because there's a big eyeball motif in the movie, like there's a lot of shots of eyes, but it didn't. It doesn't do that, which one could argue makes it less well written than the film Wild Wild West. That movie managed to include that plot element and pay it off. So West disappears into the fog, off into the night to continue his twisted work. The only Re-Animator movie that doesn't end with the death of Herbert West is the one that has no sequels, and we'll never see him again. Don't worry though, over the credits, obviously, the severed penis of Warden Brando comes to life and fights with Ratty the Rat. They have a little shadowboxing fight, the rat and the penis do, and it's not a joke, it's not a thing I'm making up as a joke. It happens in the movie, it happens so hard. Watch the movie if you don't believe me, that's how the movie ends. Good stuff, love that, all good stuff. I think we can agree what I just described, boy, that's a movie. But what if it wasn't? What if instead of being a movie, it were instead a techno Euro dance music video?
Move your dead bones, bones, bones. Move your dead bones, bones, bones. You'll dance for the rest of your life. Reanimate your feet.
Where the reanimation is presented as, I think, some sort of metaphor for freedom from sexual oppression rather than being a grotesque defiance of the natural order.
A superior existence with no one to control you, where you can always do what you like.
Instead, it's a gift that lets you go to dance clubs and have a lot of sex.
Party without limits of sex and don't be blue. Freedom is a turn off for you.
Given to you by a man I can only describe as unpleasantly handsome. Like, you look at him, you know he's handsome. You know you should think, what a handsome boy. I'd like to give him a little smooch, but you can't. Something about him just sets off a red flag in your brain. And he dresses, of course, in a sexy Re-Animator costume, or maybe two of them. And he has sexy zombie backup dancers bleeding from the mouth. And then, years later, also, this hypothetical song that I'm imagining would for some reason, get really famous out of context in the furry community.
Come on, boys and girls. Come a little closer. I'm the Re-Animator.
Now, doesn't all of the things I just said feel like a natural way to promote the home release of this sci-fi original movie? Against all odds, I am describing the song Move Your Dead Bones by the artist Dr. Re-Animator rather than recounting a dream I had. Imagine now, that the year is 2006, and you buy this DVD not knowing that the song I just described will play after the movie I just described. Imagine also that you took your then girlfriend for a romantic weekend getaway, and the two movies you brought with you were Beyond Re-Animator and George A. Romero's Night Riders, which is the movie where Ed Harris is King Arthur, except all of the Knights of the Round Table ride motorcycles around in Ren fairs, and it's not a comedy even a little bit. And you think, right, you think I'm pretending to be this way? But this is who I am. This is who I've always been. I'd like to give a special thanks to our fiends over at Patreon, particularly Liz Widow, Jacob with a K, Maston Ginger, James Garford, Devin Kaler, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Eleanor Harvey, Definitely Todd, Danwich Games, and Ben Danish. And I would like to acknowledge some stars of the channel. We got Jay Thorney, Ho-Ha, Schadenfraulein, Lanston, Rachel Rat, Sirius Bengal, Rowan Everly, Cato Moore, Carpad, Josh Manes, Hyla Tracy, Louisa Prito, Comrade Rose X, and Jesse. It remains to be seen whether or not Mildo thought of you patrons when he was high on marijuana edibles.